In 2019, at a long-term care hospital in Pennsylvania, a nurse quietly exposed one of the most chilling medical crimes the state had ever seen. But what made this case so unusual is that no one suspected a thing. There was no code blue, no alarms, just a quiet death and a nurse no one respected, turning the entire hospital upside down. The nurse's name was Daniel Reyes, fresh out of nursing school, 27 years old, quiet, low profile. He worked a graveyard shift 6 days a week. Didn't talk much. Didn't get involved in drama. And because of that, everyone, especially his supervisor, treated him like background noise. That supervisor was charge nurse Monica Grant, 20-plus years on the floor. Feared, respected, and borderline cruel. She ran the third floor like it was her personal kingdom. If you crossed her, you didn't last long. She used Daniel as her personal errand boy, sent him for coffee, dumped her documentation on him, and once during a patient emergency, blamed him for a critical error on a shift he wasn't even scheduled for. Most nurses would have snapped, but not Daniel. He stayed silent. But here's what no one knew. Daniel wasn't just a nurse. Before switching careers, he studied forensic tech and surveillance, and stitched into the inner lining of his scrubs, it was a tiny voice recorder, just in case. On November 2nd, Daniel was assigned to room 6B, a quiet room at the end of the palliative wing. The patient was an elderly man, Mr. Aldridge, post-surgery, with terminal cancer and nonverbal, supposedly on his last leg. But Daniel noticed something strange. His vitals were improving, slightly, his heart rate, his blood oxygen. Nothing major, but enough to raise a flag. Daniel told Monica. She brushed him off, said the patient was on his way out, and to focus on someone who mattered. But that night, at exactly 3:04 a.m., Daniel saw Monica enter room 6B. She wasn't doing rounds, didn't have meds. She was alone. Daniel stayed quiet, waited. 15 minutes later, she left. When he passed by the door, the smell hit him, rubbing alcohol, latex, and something sharp. Mr. Aldridge was unconscious, unresponsive. At 5:17 a.m., he flatlined, pronounced dead. Cause of death? Natural decline. Except it didn't sit right with Daniel. Something felt off. When he reviewed the audio later, there was a chilling moment. After static, Monica's voice. Soft cold. No one's going to miss you. Old man. Then a hiss, like a syringe. And silence. That was it. Daniel took it straight to administration. They listened and told him he misunderstood. Warned him not to accuse senior staff. 2 days later, Daniel was suspended for insubordination. But here's where the story turns. Because Daniel had one shift left before suspension started. Halloween night. Monica was on duty too. And Daniel had a plan. Room 6B had a new patient, a Jane Doe. No ID. Unconscious. Stable. But earlier that day, she had gone into cardiac arrest and died. Daniel delayed the paperwork. Didn't tag the body. Left her in the bed. No chart change. No updates. As far as anyone knew, she was still alive. At 2:58 a.m., Monica passed a nurse's station, told Daniel to go home. He smiled. One last check on 6B. Monica rolled her eyes and walked down the hall, into 6B. What she didn't know was that Daniel had removed the 4, replaced it with a clean line, and hidden a nanny cam above the cabinet light. At 3:07 a.m., the footage showed Monica entering, pulling a vial from her pocket, injecting the patient with a clear substance, then wiping down the port, like she'd done it before. She didn't even check the pulse. She just left. Daniel turned the footage over to hospital security, to police, and to the state board. Within 48 hours, Monica Grant was arrested, charged with second-degree murder. 2 more patient deaths were reopened, all from her wing, all after 3 a.m. Media called her the Angel of Mercy. But inside the hospital, everyone knew the truth. Monica wasn't ending suffering. She was choosing who mattered and who didn't. And Daniel, the invisible nurse, he was the only one watching, What people didn't know is that Daniel's brother had died in hospice 2 years before. Official cause? Respiratory failure. But Daniel always suspected foul play. He switched careers for one reason, so no one like Monica would go unchecked again. He'd watched, recorded, waited, and the justice? It was slow, but it came. But here's where things get even more disturbing. 2 weeks after Monica's arrest, Daniel received an envelope in his staff locker. No name, no address. Inside was a Polaroid, black and white, grainy, but clear. It showed Daniel standing at the foot of room 6B, taken from inside the room. On the back, 4 words written in red ink. You exposed the wrong one. After Daniel got that photo, the one taken from inside room 6B, things started happening fast. Too fast. First came the calls. Blocked numbers. No one is speaking, just breathing. Long, slow, like whoever it was wanted him to know they were close. Then came the patient charts, ones he hadn't accessed. Suddenly, they were logging under his ID. Med orders he never wrote, prescriptions he never touched. And then worse, a formal investigation. The hospital's internal review board accused him of tampering with records. That alone could get his license revoked. Daniel tried to fight it. He showed them the photo, the threats, the voice recordings. But nothing stuck. Because of the photo, it had vanished. Gone from his locker. Gone from his phone. All that was left was the red ink on his fingers. Meanwhile, Monica Grant sat behind bars. But she wasn't talking. To anyone, not even her lawyer. The police thought she acted alone. A rogue nurse on a power trip. But Daniel, he wasn't so sure. He remembered something Monica used to say, jokingly. In this place, mercy isn't policy, it's privilege. No one really paid attention. But now it echoed like a warning. Or a code. 2 weeks later, a body was found in the staff parking garage. Nurse Rami Akhtar, our shift lead, ruled a suicide. Jumped from the 3rd floor roof deck. But Daniel knew Rami. And Rami never took elevators. Never climbed heights. And the autopsy showed high levels of lorazepam. Enough to sedate a grown man. Admin called it tragedy. Daniel called it a message. Because Rami used to work on Monica's floor 5 years back. And he had recently filed for early retirement, effective the same week she was arrested. Now here's where it gets disturbing. Daniel went back through the archives, security logs, patient deaths, nurse schedules, and what he found chilled him. Every year, for the past 6 years, between October 31st and November 16th, at least one patient has died in room 6B, always between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m., always signed off as natural decline. And in 5 out of 6 cases, Monica was either on shift or had swapped shifts with another nurse. But here's the part that doesn't make sense. The 6th time, Monica wasn't working. In fact, she was on vacation. The nurse that night was Rami. Daniel dug deeper and found something buried in the old HR files. A group photo from 2013. The year room 6B was reopened after a fire on that wing. In the photo, Monica and Rami, 3 other nurses, all smiling, all standing right outside the freshly painted door. All but one now dead. One by suicide, one in a car crash, one from cancer. Only Monica and one other remained. A nurse named Helen Tro. Quiet, older, day shifts, worked in a lab now barely noticeable. But in every major shift change, every sudden death, her signature showed up. Somewhere, a consult, a witness, a med tech assistant. Daniel requested to speak to her. Casual, just coffee in the break room. She agreed. She showed up in her scrubs. Smiled, acted surprised he even remembered her name. But 5 minutes in, she said something strange. Something that cracked the whole thing open. She looked at him, almost amused, and said, "Daniel, some people make it to night shift, others are chosen by it." Then she sipped her tea, looked him dead in the eyes. "You're lucky, you know. Room 6B likes you." That night, Daniel didn't go home. He stayed, hid in the med supply closet near 6B. He waited until the wing was quiet. until the monitors hummed. And at exactly 3:12 a.m., he heard it. Footsteps. Not Monica's. Not Helen's. Someone else. Slow. Confident. A faint clink of metal. Like a keychain. Then, room 6BS door creaked open. Daniel crept out. Peered down the hallway. What he saw froze him. A figure in a long white coat. Not scrubs. Not a hospital issue. A coat from the old days. Bloodstained. Yellowing. And the face? Covered in a surgical mask from decades ago. Eyes pitch black. Not rage. Not malice. Just emptiness. The figure stepped into 6B, closed the door, and the light inside flickered once, then went dark. When Daniel finally opened the door, the room was empty. No patient. No visitor. No one. Just the soft beeping of a heart monitor that was never plugged in. And on the wall, scratched into the paint, was a number. 7. The 7th will fall. Like for part 2. Because the scariest things are on night shift aren't always the ones who haunt you. Sometimes they're the ones who watch you.